systems nominal.
Hello, my fellow mech warriors, fellow mech enthusiasts. This is your Lance Commander Zero Sum. First things first, Merry Christmas. I know it's been a little bit of time since the last time I did anything mech related on this channel, but never fear. Since January, I'll be bringing back Mechwarrior Mondays for the upcoming Rise of Rasselhawk DLC for Mechwarrior 5. That should be fun. In the meantime, I've been playing a lot of mech games just to get myself back in the swing of things, and, well, being me, I ended up falling down a couple of rabbit holes and going back to the really old ones back in the 90s, when Mechwarrior was really at its height in terms of, like, the Mechwarrior 2, Mechwarrior 3, those ones. And also doing a lot of the games that fell under Mechwarrior's shadow somewhat, as it was happening in those days. One of those is this baby right here. This is Activision's answer to the loss of the Mechwarrior license back in '96 after Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries. This is Heavy Gear. This one is based on a universe created in 1994 by Canadian game developers, well, tabletop game developers, by the name of DreamPod 9, who are still in business to this day, by the way. It's been used as the setting for their miniatures war game, tabletop RPG. It even got its own single-season cartoon, just like Battletech did, ironically. And eventually got 2 video games with Activision. This one, Heavy Gear, released in 1997, and a second one in 1999, which unfortunately didn't sell particularly well because they missed their release date, and unfortunately the marketing just couldn't manage to catch up, so it sold, I think, total of that year 30,000 copies, which was nowhere near enough to get what they needed in order to make a sequel. Eventually there was one, but it never got off the ground because of some serious fuckery that happened behind the scenes. I won't go into detail, but suffice to say there was a crypto pump and dump scheme involved, and it just was a mess. So don't expect any other Heavy Gear video games to be coming out anytime soon, at least, as far as I know. So what we have is this one. This is 1997's Heavy Gear by Activision, made by the same team pretty much who did Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries, and using a modified version of the same engine. So this plays a lot like an old school Mechwarrior game, with some serious caveats, which we'll get to when I start playing this thing. So for starters, some quick background. This world of Heavy Gear is focused primarily on a planet called Terra Nova, at least initially, one of the many colony worlds that were abandoned by Earth after it suffered some serious global economic problems and forced them to cut off support to all their colonies indefinitely. Basically, like, it's like the Roman Empire calling back its legions from Britain. It's just like, okay, you guys, we can't protect you anymore, we can't give you any supplies, we can't afford it anymore, just, you're on your own. And in the many intervening years, we're talking centuries, the planet's disparate factions coalesced into 2 primary blocks or leagues controlling the north and south hemispheres of the planet, respectively, with this big, vast equatorial desert called the Badlands acting as a DMZ between them. And as you can imagine from this being a wargame setting, they don't like each other one bit and have spent much of their time at war for one reason or another, whether it be resources or ideology. The North is far more religious than the South, so that also has an impact. The South is a bit more secular, but also a bit more totalitarian in certain ways, authoritarian. Neither side can be considered really the good guys as such. They've both got issues, but they don't care. They will blow the shit out of each other, respectively. Using, among other things, they have, the usual kind of tanks and planes and helicopters and stuff like that you'd expect for the sci-fi equivalent, but also modified mining and industrial mechs that they had originally from their colony days called Gears, which they've equipped to the nines with every kind of weapon they could fit on these things. Modified with neural net AIs to help with the adaptive the piloting, and they are quite effective at what they do. They've also got these things called land ships, where these huge aircraft carrier-sized vehicles that, using Terra Nova's particular electromagnetic properties of its magnetosphere, can actually hover using magnetic repulsion technology. That's pretty cool too, because Terra Nova doesn't really have any oceans as such. Most of the water's underground or, in rivers and lakes as opposed to that, so it's kind of handy to get around. So it's only when there's a reascended Earth that comes by to try and take back their colonies that these 2 sides will ever kind of get into some kind of alliance. Basically, it's like when you have 2 siblings fighting, then immediately team up, and if ever somebody else comes in and kick their ass. Which eventually they did when Earth came a-knocking with an army of genetically engineered super soldiers called Grells. Long story short, Terra Nova wins that war and immediately goes back to fighting amongst themselves because of course they do. And that is where 1997's Heavy Gear comes in story-wise. So, we go here to story mode here. This is our main character, Senior Ranger Edward Scott of the Confederated Northern City-States, the CNCS. He is stationed aboard the landship Vigilance with the 67th Harvest Wind Regiment under command of Colonel Arthur Janus. It is 1936 according to the Terra Nova calendar, and he is having a very, very bad time of it, as we'll see once you play through the about 30 missions in the story campaign. I've got 13 currently on this save. Let's go back to number 1 here, just to show it off. And, naturally, 90s FMVs. So, as you can see, before I stretch this out a bit better, I'm running this game in, well, let's just say various compatibility modes and wrappers and emulators, because as you can imagine from a game from the 90s that has not seen any re-releases or anything, it doesn't work very well by itself. I'm playing this on what's called the Heavy Gear 1 Ultimate Repack. Some baller fans took this and its sequel and included everything you need to get running more or less functionally on your Windows 10 PC. I'll include the links in the description.
Oh, I'll be out there somewhere.
But as you can imagine, there were some issues. The cutscenes show up in the corner of the screen with everything else being blue, and you have to alt-tab in and out of the game at the start of every mission, otherwise you get black squares around all your explosions and particle effects.
3 kills. It's got the touch.
You ought to know.
This is Chris Stapleton, the actor portraying both doing the voice acting and portraying the character.
Ready to carve a line in the sand today?
Sir, yes, sir. It's an honor to have the opportunity to learn from you, sir.
And why is that, Corporal Janus?
You're the ship's duelist, sir. Everybody knows.
Duelist has the luxury of a duel, Corporal. That's a controlled situation. Out there are no rules. It's kill or be killed. So I don't need you to learn from me. I need you to teach me something. Is that understood?
Sir, yes, sir.
Get to it.
So yeah, those two, the younger ones on the right, they're not the best actors of these ones, but all these other ones, the guy playing his commander there, Chris Stapleton himself, playing Edward Scott, his direct superior, Lieutenant Brockton, who we saw talking to earlier, they're actually very good. They take their roles seriously, they put the right level of emotion into their delivery, and, they're not, winking at the audience or anything like that. It's very much... It's 90s FMVs, but it's 90s FMVs that take themselves a bit seriously, and they're definitely a higher quality, which you'll see in something like, Terra Nova Strike Force Centauri, which has notoriously bad ridiculous FMVs for an otherwise great game, so... Okay. So, first thing in this game's favor, I love these kinds of menus. You saw this also with the earlier, like in the Mechwarrior 2 trilogy. These kinds of interactive environment menus where everything, all the different entries that you can click on look like they're part of the actual briefing room or cockpit here of the Vigilance. You can see the guns outside the main view window. So if I go to the barracks here, it gives you your history of your campaign. So I've got name, score, missions won and lost, enemy kills, rank, combat priority. Combat priority, which increases as you score, during the course of the campaign, is what determines exactly what kind of equipment you have access to. The higher your combat priority, the better the gear you can get, literally in terms of gears and in terms of weapons and other stuff. Here you have your gear AI. The Terra Nova neural net computers have the ability to learn over time. They're not true artificial intelligence, and then, in other words, they're not sapient or anything, although they do apparently, according to the fluff, pick up mannerisms from their pilots, because typically a single pilot will have a single AI that they take with them from one gear to another. You can just, as you can see, grab it by the handle and take it out with you. And often they're buried with them when the pilot dies, apparently. There's a lot of fluff that's actually in the RPG if you're interested in learning more about this setting, because it's got some depth to it. There's a lot of ink has been put down to paper about it. So I've got some speed increase, auto-targeting, which means that as soon as an enemy comes within the sensor range, my gear will automatically target it instead of me having to do it manually. Clever sensors, I don't actually know what this does, and armor bonus. I do not know how I got these, really. I think it's just because zipping around really fast, your AI learns that you like to go fast, so it starts increasing speed. Armor bonus if you take a couple of hits or something like that, or if you're constantly targeting, quickly targeting stuff, it'll start learning to target for you. There's no actual guide anywhere I could find that tells you exactly how to get these particular bonuses, but, you'll see. I'm with the 7th Harvest Wind. Nice little Reaper thing here. Perks, none. We'll see perks when I show the tour of duty mode, and medals, you get these from different actions during your missions, like, you know, shooting at enemies and destroying stuff. So let's go to the briefing here. Now, as you can see, my gear spinning around like this is definitely not supposed to do that, but, well, you know, we are running through DX Wind Wrapper, so you have to expect certain things. I've got two squad mates here.
Grell raiders have moved dangerously close
Mission
to our
briefing.
border. A Grell combat base is set up just 10 clicks from a CNCS border town. You will be dropped 1 kilometer from the Grell perimeter. Head for Way Echo and destroy all Grell opposition you encounter. Destroy the base and then await further orders. Keep an eye on your pilots. They're a little green. Bring them both back alive.
Thing. So, yeah, this is just your initial situation. The Vigilance's main task is to patrol the border and prevent, you know, aggression from the south and from bandits and stuff like that. Grell, units of Grell soldiers that were left behind from the Earth invasion and stuff like that. Later on in the second game, those left behind Earth invaders are going to cause some serious problems when they bomb a major city with an antimatter device that gets smuggled in. That actually gets both these sides to finally start, you know, listening to each other and send a squad out for a little bit of, you know, investigation and vengeance on a nearby Earth control planet. So yeah, but personally, between this one and the sequel looks a lot better, obviously, because it was 1999, and it's a different engine, of course. But I like the story in this one better. It takes itself seriously while still being kind of like, you know, a pulpy war story, sci-fi war story. But it's got some, you know, gravitas to it, which I happen to like. So you can also look at the current situation here, telling you a bit where you are and what's going on. You got a bit of a map of the areas here. The north is a bit more like, you know, temperate zones with a lot more cold areas up here. And the south has a lot of jungles and swamp areas. So, first of all, here's something good. The difference here between this game and Mechwarrior, especially the Mechwarriors of the time. One of the things that's different is in terms of scale. If I look at these here, let's look at some of the ones I made. Like the cheetah here. Don't need this one. Where? Yeah, these are the standard ones that I've got. Since I haven't advanced, I'm on my, you know, up to the 13th mission. I've got a lot more than what I would start here. The cheetahs that my other squad mates are equipped with, these are like light scout gears. Now, in terms of scale, not only is the universe a lot more small than Battletech. So, like, you know, Battletech, there are thousands upon thousands of inhabited planets. In the Heavy Gear universe, you have maybe a dozen at most that have been colonized before the whole thing went to hell. The mechs themselves are also much smaller. Your average gear is between like 4 and 5 meters tall on average, and I think around, you know, not much more than 10 tons in terms of weight. The really, really big ones that are closest to actual battle mechs are called Striders, and that's, for instance, these ones here, the actual Mammoth Strider. That's the North's default one. The South also has their own versions. Versus battle mechs, which even at their smallest, like the Commando, which is a rather small light mech, that one's at minimum almost 9 meters tall. I think it's 8.6 meters tall, and, you know, weighs a good amount heavier than these guys. So there's definitely that scale element. The closest thing in the Battletech universe to gears are clan protomechs, only, you know, without the whole weirdo animal mascot fetish and a lot more Armor Trooper Votoms vibes. You know what I mean? And that applies also for the legs on these things, because just like that anime, these guys have either wheels or treads, depending on, you know, how big their legs are, that allow them to really zip around on flat terrain, which is, you know, pretty handy in getting around. Gears are far more maneuverable than mechs in terms of, like, getting around. They're closer in terms of their role on the battlefield, halfway between infantry and armored vehicles like tanks. They can carry a whole bunch of firepower, and they can move around and take cover and use the terrain to their advantage, but they are still vulnerable. The time to kill in this game is pretty quick, which we'll demonstrate when we get into. Now, one thing I love about this game, and the best part is that it's completely optional, because you don't even need to use it. So, for instance, let's go to one of the men's I've put together here, Mr. Killdozer here. This Killdozer is made up of a whole bunch of different parts, because you can build your gears from scratch. Unlike Mechwarrior, where you take like a regular one particular mech chassis, like, you know, some heavy mech like a Marauder, or, you know, a medium one like a hunchback, something like that, and then add in weapons either anywhere you want, like it was in Mechwarrior 3 in previous, or into specific hard points, as in Mechwarrior 4 and going forward. Here, you can build your whole thing up from scratch, like in, say, Armored Core or Front Mission, those kinds of games. So, I'm going to give an example here. Let's just clear the gear. And let's start doing something. Let's build ourselves something, let's see. Let's take a... What can we take? Let's take a Grizzly torso here. So that gives us base strength, which is how well your mech deals with recoil from your various weapons. Max speed, 0, because it's got no legs or anything. Sensors, how stealthy it is. Stealth is something that you have to keep in mind in this game. It determines how easily you are detected by enemy sensors versus you detecting them, which is what sensors are for. In the second game, they actually include a stealth meter and include quite a few missions where you have to sneak up or follow tail enemies to their base and stuff like that. And it works actually rather well, and works in theme, since in that game you're operating behind enemy lines on an, hostile planet, working with the local resistance and stuff like that. So it works really well. It's surprisingly effective at stealth mechanics in a mech game. They also have 0G missions, which is pretty cool. Those 3 levels that take place floating around. Controls are, well, hard, to say the least, but it's a nice little touch for this kind of thing. So we see we got different engines here we can add on. These determine also additional speed. Let's go for advanced speed. Max speed 6 kilometers per hour. Throw a head. Head contains most of the sensors and such. So let's see here. Let's go for this one, the Hunter XMG, sensors 3. Put that there. Arms. We're going to want to put some decently strong arms, I think. Let's go for Hunter XMG as well. And legs, of course. So these ones very much determine how fast we're going to go. Grizzly's not very fast. Let's go. And as you can see here, max speed 12 kilometers per hour. Not exactly ideal, unfortunately. I think we can probably change this out if I... Oop. Oh, okay, well. You can see what I do there. So let's go back to one that I've already built. Let's go for my buddy Killdozer over here. So, you have a number of weapons that you can attach that are determined by your combat rating, or combat priority, I mean. And just like in Mechwarrior 4 and forward, you have certain hard points in order to attach them. You can attach one rifle-style weapon, or bazooka-style weapon, basically anything that would fit in your right hand here. These are your primary weapons. Bazookas have lock-on, so that's definitely useful, although autocannons typically have far more ammunition, and they can have decent penetration as well. Armor penetration is something to bear in mind, because if a weapon does not have the ability to penetrate armor, it's just going to bounce right off. We'll be able to see that going forward. You also have rocket packs that you can put on here. You don't have the option of just sticking ammunition down into your torso and your legs, unfortunately. So whatever you got in those rocket packs is what you get. So you got to use them sparingly. Incendiary, nice. You also have indirect fire stuff like grenades. Grenades I haven't found that useful, simply because the arc for firing them is a little bit off. And the same thing goes for these anti-personnel mortars and stuff like that. Guided mortars are a little bit easier because they can kind of track their targets a little bit, but it's still a bit hard to use ones. I find the same thing goes for these ones, the heavy rocket packs. These ones go on your back, and unfortunately those ones fire with a arc that I find really hard to use. So typically I will get rid of those. Also, you have energy weapons, but I haven't unlocked those yet. So so far that seems pretty reasonable, I think. However, there is an extra bit. Let's say I'm not satisfied with just doing this. What if I want to really tweak around with my gear? I can go into each separate component and start messing around with all the components inside of them. So like here I've added heavy hydraulics to increase my strength. I can change out the electronics, put shielded electronics to help protect myself from going haywire in case like there's a critical hit that punches through the armor and causes some electronic disruption. I can increase my internal structure with different components that also increase my load, of course. I can add jump jets if I want to. You don't really need to, but they're there if you want them. Let's say I'm currently at load 2130. Oh, I'm still a bit heavy, but Here's a cool thing also. Max load is right now lower than my current load, but I can still add stuff on. It's just that your maximum speed is going to start going down the more stuff you load up, to the point where if I start really overloading my gear, I'm going to get a message when I say acceptance like, you sure you want to go out there with this thing? You're going to be a sitting duck. Armor is good, but mobility is far, far more important, as we'll see. Speaking of which, I can go here to my legs here. I can actually increase my speed by changing out the actuators. So like put standard actuators 6 kph, or put heavier ones that'll increase the structure, advanced ones which do both, or experimental ones. Ooh, let's put that in here. Let's see, thigh actuator, knee actuator, and ankle actuators. Yeah, so I can switch those out. I can switch out the structure, the support, light supports, medium supports, hydraulics, all of which have a different effect on your gear and its performance. I can switch that out. And, okay, 60 kph. Unfortunately, the extra load had an impact more than the actual actuators there. And the same thing here goes for the arms. You can change the hydraulics. All sorts of stuff supports. And even cooler, you can go to the head. And the head is where all your sensors and stuff like that. So I've got low light vision, advanced radar for better pickup, advanced sensors. I can add an autopilot if I want, backup fire control to keep internal fires from breaking out, backup sensors if a critical hit happens and my sensors get damaged, which is something to bear in mind. Individual components, if his shot gets through armor, can be destroyed or damaged, and that including your weapons, your sensors, all that stuff. Satellite uplink if you want like a top-down map version, stealth pod for increasing your stealth abilities, advanced sensors, you name it. So this one reduces stealth by 3, increases sensors by 3. Emergency medical. I think what I'm going to do is I got advanced radar. Yeah, advanced sensors too. I think what I can do is I can take out the advanced sensors and put out the stealth pod. Yeah, increase my stealth instead of a negative. Now it's a positive, so that'll help keep enemies off me a bit. Let's see. And while I'm at it, I'm going to show off the... How much does the medium autocannon weigh? 700 versus bazooka load. Okay, these things are way heavier. That's the downside, of course. Well, 720 rapid fire bazooka. Ammo 60 versus this one, ammo 200. Why not? Switch out that one. Yeah, okay. Let's accept. And launch.
Alpha Leader, LZ looks clear, over.
Copy. We'll rendezvous in 20 at Way Echo. Out.
Alright. Alt tab and out. Ah, and see that? I didn't even do anything and it automatically locked onto it. And boom. And there we go. Gotta love the rapid fire bazooka. Ooh, and they're right next to each other. Can I get them both? Alright, let's put these ones in weapon group 2. You can do the same thing
Alpha
as you
Leader,
could
we're
in...
headed for Way Echo. I'm getting nervous out here. Over.
Roger, Alpha 2. Grells could return at any minute. Move double time. 1 out.
Group fire engaged.
Group fire. Where do you think you're going? There we go. That's all the grills. So, if we look here, one of the things that's really cool about these gears is that since I said they have maneuverability, you can actually strafe, which is really good for dodging incoming fire. Or, turn on your wheels, and now I'm going full 125 kph, not too bad. So yeah, you can also attach... Okay, that's all.
Waypoint Echo reached. New mission objective.
Let's get on this guy. So, as you can see, my heavy machine guns have no effect on this gear. However, missiles, rocket pods, it does. Now here's something cool. Damage actually shows up as a line image on your target when it's locked on. That is really cool there. So let's...
Boom. Destroyed.
Destroyed. So let's get these guys on it. You attack, you flank them.
Yes, sir. Moving out.
Now I'll hit him with this. Locking on.
Hostile gear destroyed.
Capo.
I've got him. Yes, sir. I'm with you.
Hostile contact detected. New mission objective.
Destroy fleeing antelope jeep. Alright. So yeah, if I put on the heavy machine guns here, and I start attacking this guy, it's not going to do anything. This jeep is armored. It's not going to be effective. However, if I damage it first...
Hostile vehicle destroyed.
If I had an autocannon that would have just damaged instead of blowing it up by double firing those missiles, it would have actually damaged the armor, allowing the heavy machine guns to penetrate and cause actual damage. So I've got, let's see, options on these guys. Squad mates have some pretty good options in terms of what you can get them to do. Attack, flanking, defending a target, scouting a particular target, a waypoint, taking to cover, returning to formation. So you can give them some pretty decent orders, and they'll follow them to the letter. Generally speaking, AI in this game is acceptable for the time. It's not perfect, and it won't necessarily always do everything you want, but boom. But it does the job, provided you're willing to babysit them just a little bit. Alright, let's destroy this Grell base. These ones aren't armored. So, you see this gun right here? The enemy dropped this when they died. Here's what I can do. Since these are the rapid-fire bazooka here, and I just picked up a light autocannon. If you want to, you can pick up the enemy's weapons, drop your stuff if you run out of ammo, for instance, and then just, pick up the enemy's guns and keep shooting. I mean, that is a nice little advantage. Let's switch over to the light autocannon. It's like a semi-automatic rifle, basically, only it fires tank shells. So let's finish blowing this stuff up. And okay.
Low light engaged.
I love low light mode. It's just like it takes away all the textures and put everything in line grid. I think this was back also available in Mechwarrior 2. I don't know all of them, but I do know Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries.
Primary objective completed.
It's just handy for finding stuff in your environment if you want. Alright, successful in destroying the enemy base. Excellent work. Duelist. The Duelist is basically the top gear pilot on any particular regiment. If ever there's a one-on-one fight between two groups, he's the one you call to do that. They have a kind of a dueling culture here on Terra Nova. Alright, so then we have the next mission here. I'm going to skip this one. Switch over to the next one, because here's something else that's kind of cool. Port. Gotta go here. So here's something else that's kind of cool. You don't always get access to those customization options.
North Transport 1, we're clearing away with a full belly.
Oh, here, it's a little bit
Henry, get on. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, there's the Colonel Janice's son. He is not long for this world, and that's the only spoiler I'm going to give. Let's just say things go very badly from this mission forward, and things keep going badly, as the Vigilance now has to try and get the hell out of the situation that some very bad things are going to happen. Basically, you get pursued across the Badlands by its counterpart, the Draco, another southern landship, and well, things get pretty desperate. There's a really good variety of missions in this game. Sometimes you're doing hostage rescues, trying to rescue some captured paratroopers, doing recon on a mission on a particular town. You have to get close to the town in order to identify specific targets with your targeting computer. Other times you're doing full-on assaults on base in order not to destroy everything, but to capture an enemy gear so you can use it to infiltrate into the enemy landship and sabotage it to keep it from pursuing you so you have time to do repairs. So there's a good amount of separate missions, even though the terrain is still mostly like this kind of desert that you can encounter. So here's the thing though. Right now this is a field briefing. I can't choose anything in terms of what kind of gear I have. I have to deal with what I have because I'm breaking out of a prison camp. Spoiler warning from the last mission, that cutscene. Yeah, it didn't go well.
Mission log 136. Reeves has escaped, but Henry, Janice, and I were captured. Henry didn't make it.
Nope.
I have captured a Grell gear, an older Hunter model. I hope it will hold together long enough for me to escape. I don't know how I'm going to tell the Colonel that I lost his son.
Yeah, let's just say he doesn't take it well, suffice it to say. Anyway, here, let's go. Yeah, there we go. Alt tab, as previously.
Double time, Alpha 1. Multiple grill units approaching. This area is hot, and we will not wait for you. Over.
Give me 5, Lieutenant. Just 5 bloody minutes.
New mission objective.
So yeah, those are the grenades. They're not exactly the best. Okay, let's take care of these tank pilots. Oh shit. It'll be a bit hard to pick up. There we go. There you go. Where'd the rest of them go?
Alpha 1! Alpha 1! Abort pickup at Way Sierra! Repeat, Sierra is compromised. Lock in new course for Way Tango. Do you copy? Way Tango.
Copy, Gray Leader. Locking on Way Tango.
New mission objective. Low light. Engaged.
Yeah, so one of the secondary missions is to make sure there's no pursuit, and that means killing all those tank pilots. And also blowing up the rest of the prison camp bomb here. Guard tower. I always like it when these particular, like, regular structures have their own individual tags. Like this, Mechwarrior games do this a lot. Sergeant's Jack, living quarters. Oh, there's a guy gear. Unfortunately, sometimes my mouse jumps out of the area, which is a bit annoying. Where is you? There you are. Where do you think you're going? There we go. Alright.
Secondary objective completed.
Damn right. Now, let's take care of this healer. All the southern mechs are named after reptiles, mostly, and the northern mechs named after mammals, you'll notice. Except for the Hunter, which was the first combat mech ooh, what's this here? Okay, you can pick this one up. Heavy autocannon. Nice. Unfortunately, I think it also means that I'm moving fairly slowly. Or unless I was stuck on something. Still moving it. Oh yeah. You can see there, this thing is way too heavy for this model, so I'm just gonna put that down and go get my actual gun. Yeah, I can move at a decent pace now. You can see there, you can equip stuff from your environment, but it's going to make you slow down quite a bit. Alright, so let's see here. Got a Hun tank here, which is practically bulletproof even to a light autocannon, versus, say, there and there, armor disrupted. And now I can start blowing it up.
Hostile vehicle destroyed.
Yeah, versus, let's see if I can find that heavy gun. Grab that. There we go. Oh man, I'm moving so slowly. Look at this. Alright, and as you can see, the heavy autocannon does have enough penetration to actually destroy a tank from the get-go.
Hostile vehicle destroyed.
Now, tanks are no joke in this game. If you go one-on-one against a tank in this game, or in the second one, chances are you are going to die, because these things do hurt quite a bit, especially more advanced ones, like the North has railgun tanks. That's no joke.
Hostile vehicle
there
destroyed.
We go. Come on, Matt. Blow that up. Blow up the water towers over here. Water being a very important resource in the desert. We don't want them to have any. I think that's everything. Nah, well, screw it. I've already done this mission anyway. So, let's get ourselves to Rendezvous Tango. Turn on the waypoint right over there. Okay, let's hit him with some hack. So you can see probably why I like this game. It's got a completely different feel to Mechwarrior. The time to kill on enemies and on you is much faster. But you also have the maneuverability to survive even though that's happening. So it definitely has a much
Hostile
different
contact
feel
detected.
to
Hostile
what
contact
you previously
detected.
would play in Mechwarrior games, where you would pretty much have to ablate the armor right off of the mech in order to actually be able to take it out. Here, you can just, like, if you got a right kind of weapon, just lay down the fire, cause some serious problems.
Hostile gear destroyed.
Which can even cause, like, internally problems, like cause the mech to go haywire and be paralyzed and shut down for a little while from power loss, cause internal fires that cause damage over time. Sensors, you can actually have your HUD get turned
Hostile
off.
gear destroyed.
Oh yeah, this heavy autocan's no joke. You can have your HUD get turned off and you have to turn it back on. Let's see. Nothing there. There's a mission channel on your comms. So for specific things like calling into troop transports for evac, or for, you know, calling in airstrikes, telling other squads to start going in for their missions. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of sim here. It plays a bit more arcadey than Mechwarrior does, but there's definitely a lot of sim elements to this game that, frankly, you don't necessarily see even in the mainline Mechwarrior game, like, you know, in Mechwarrior 5, for instance. Alright, let's get ourselves to Waypoint Tango. It can take a little while to get from one place to another, unfortunately. Hence the reason why it's so good. Oh, shit. Ow. Ooh. Also, something to bear in mind. You see how my arm just went yellow there? Yeah. You can take damage by running into stuff if you're going too fast, so bear that in mind.
Waypoint Tango reached. Primary objective completed. New mission objective.
Let's take this guy out. You can also, if you're going over rough terrain, fall down.
Hostile gear destroyed.
There we go. And call Orca to Tango.
Vigilance, this is Alpha 1. I am at Way Tango. Send in the evac. Now!
Air trans is en route, Alpha 1. Stick close to Tango. We may only have one shot at this. Vigilance out.
Primary objective completed.
Alright, and now we just wait for the aircraft there to arrive. Put this down, give myself some actual movement speed again. You can see the difference here. I'm not even putting the wheels on, and I'm already going at the same speed I was going. That heavy autocannon is way too heavy for this lighter gear. So, for instance, if I grab this one, I think this is one of the lighter ones. Oh no, this is another heavy autocannon. If I wanted this one, I could have it too. Yeah, this game, it obviously has some jank due to the fact that A, it's an old game and running through emulation, and B, the Mechwarrior 2 engine, especially Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries engine, wasn't necessarily the most unbuggy engine ever created. But honestly, this game has certain elements that I haven't seen, really, in other mech games of the same type. You see like this a lot in, you know, games like Armor Core or other mech games that focus a lot on movement and stuff like that. But having something that's both grounded in terms of the way it operates, but also with just enough extra maneuverability to make it, I guess, a bit more approachable in terms of its controls, because you got, you know, something resembling proper FPS control, you know, regular FPS controls, but, you know, even then you still get all this sim stuff. This is something that Terra Nova Strike Force Centauri also did.
Mission complete.
There we go. There we go. So, you know, that, of course, Colonel Sun wasn't so lucky, and that's going to bite me in the ass so bad. Alright. Yeah, he's totally taking it well. Anyway. So now we're back on the Vigilance, so now we do have access to this stuff. So, let's also take a look at something else here, because there's also another aspect to this game. There's the Tour of Duty mode. This was also replicated in the multiplayer, well, this is the single-player variant of it, which is basically, it simulates an actual war game as such. So let's go with this one. Yeah, let's go over this one I did with the South here, so we can actually, you know, see what the southern mechs gears are like. So we start in the southern base here, and as you can see, it's a completely different environment. Go look at our barracks here. We're with the 5th Tin Men. You've got 2 medals here. Speed increase on our gear AI. This is a pretty next one. Cool thing is that we can actually select, as our combat priority increases and we do missions, different units will request us to join with them if we really want to. So that's pretty cool too. Some of them have particular perks and others don't, have little limitations. So let's go to the command here. So how does this work? You go on different missions, whether to strike an enemy target, capture a base, do battle with enemy gears, do a supply raid or something like that. And this will determine victory points, gain you extra intelligence, or deny intelligence to the enemy. If they're trying to do a reconnaissance mission and you search and destroy it, they don't get anything. As you can see, you've managed to deny the North some intel. Get extra supplies, which increases the amount of gear and the equipment that you have for your to customize your gear, and reinforcements for additional, help on that regard. And basically, this whole thing goes, and you'll see the map change as you complete different missions, as you either succeed or fail at the missions that you're granted. If you fail on enough missions, eventually the North in this case the North, will start getting, the advantage on you, and you'll suddenly have a lot more defensive missions instead of offensive. That's something. Let's do this supply raid. Show what it's about. Here's my buddy Killdozer here. Commission codename Romeo 7 Golf. These ones are more procedurally generated. Think of this as the kind of sandbox mode that you would have for something like Mechwarrior 5, but with a bit more focus on the back and forth warfare that you're going to be encountering here. So, got a bunch of different. Let's get Lady and Devil and Stinger. Give them all Jaegers. The Jaeger is basically the hunter, but copied by the Southern armies when they captured one from the North. And, since then they built their own. So let's see. Take a look at here. Killdozer here. As you can see, I do not have the same level of variety of parts that I had for previously. I only have a light autocannon, light rocket pack, and my 2 heavy machine guns. In fact, I don't even have access to the medium rocket packs at all yet. I'll only be able to do that after I've managed to complete enough missions, get some supplies. Oh, another cool thing, you can change not just the amount of armor, you can change the kind of armor. Armor Plast, Durasheet. Yeah. And change the lower armor. Ceramics is the lowest grade. Composite is halfway. Alloy is the best. And this will actually help, prevent penetration and critical hits. So there's a lot of variety of stuff you can do with your gears, and you don't even have to. You can just select some of the default ones, like the Iguana or the Jaeger. I'm still going with Killdozer, of course. So, capture supply planes. Destroy targets of opportunity, if any. Destroy all enemies. So we do not want to blow up the supply planes. Here we go. Night mission. So, let's head to waypoint Bravo.
I'm there. I'm with you.
Now, got enemies way over there at waypoint Bravo. Now, as you can see also, the Southern gears have a completely different backwards UI in their HUD. Oop, we got incoming fire. And they even have different voice to it.
Low light engaged.
So, even there's also some times during the story campaign we'll also be equipping the Southern mechs. So, that's kind of cool as well. Alright, let's get the light rocket pack. Alright, got him next. If your hydraulics get damaged, you will have a harder time aiming. There we go. Oh, and he fell down. Take out a leg. There we go.
I'll give him hell.
Take out a leg and, you're screwed at that point. Not quite dead, but just trying to aim is a pain in the ass. Alright. Got Hunter over here. Oh shit. that's causing... Oh, there he goes. Power loss.
Hostile gear destroyed.
Ah, got him. Oh, his engine's damaged. I think he's having some problems.
Hostile gear destroyed.
Okay, looks like he was about to throw a grenade.
Nice shot.
Alright. Take him out.
I'll take a look. I'll take a look.
Careful. You're basically having to turn your mech just like in Mechwarrior, but, you know, with your ability to aim independently as well. So let's take this guy out. That's...
Group fire engaged.
Distract him. Somebody thinks it's being clever with those grenades. Alright, so Hunter's got 2 good armor. Not anymore. You can kind of hear the difference in terms of like when you have that clink noise, indicating that you have either deflection or... Yeah, his armor's still too good, even damaged. Yeah, that... Oh! There we go, critical hit to the power supply.
I'll give him hell. I'm locking on.
Watch out those grenades, guys.
Hostile gear destroyed.
There we go. So we didn't destroy any targets of opportunity, but we destroyed all enemies and captured supply planes. Base combat priorities increased. Developed new AI skill. And awarded the Order of Charon White. And as we can see, we've got 6 victory points. And we've moved a little bit higher up here, which means we've got, you know, some chance of winning this war eventually. You got also now reconnaissance mission where you now have to locate the enemy base and scan the buildings there, search and destroy, find the enemies before they can complete the same kind of mission. And there's a good variety there. It's not, the story here is obviously absent. So, there. Because, you know, there is no story to it, or cutscenes or anything like that. But it's a nice little way, you know, thing to do while you're, you know, done with the basic campaign. So, this is something that I like about these older games. They have a lot of ideas that don't necessarily always get the best implementation for reasons of budget or hardware limitations or anything like that. But I think that this game, Heavy Gear, like a lot of the 90s era mech sims, and, you know, sims in general, because the 90s had a whole bunch of them, like, you know, games like Wing Commander, and, you know, other sim games like, you know, Terra Nova, and, like I've mentioned. Even BioWare came out with one called Shattered Steel, which was okay. It wasn't nearly as good as any of these ones, but, you know, it was actually pretty cool. There was also the Earth Siege games that had some cool ideas, and often they had a level of personality to them that I think is absent in the current games of this type, or at least not as emphasized, and that saddens me a bit, because I think that's one of the things that provides context and fun to these kinds of games, which can otherwise be a bit dry sometimes. So yeah, this is 1997's Heavy Gear. I'm gonna, as I said before, I'll have the link to the repacks of both this and its sequel. If you didn't necessarily like the controls for this or find it too buggy or having a hard time with it, the sequel is probably a lot easier to get into. I just prefer the story of this one personally. It's just, you know, it's a bit more literally a personal story with, you know, some more well-developed characters. The second one also doesn't have the same level of customization you can do with your gears. You can do stuff with them, and they can change, add perks and flaws to your gears in order to change their values, and you know, like you can load up your gear with some crippling flaws and then load them up with some heavy artillery and just go to town with things. That's pretty cool. But I have to say, these ones, they may not have been able to light the world on fire like Mechwarrior did at the time, but you know what? They've got some damn good ideas that I would like to see re-implemented in a modern game. If ever another Heavy Gear game or some kind of spiritual sequel of the same like gets taken off the ground, I would like to see some of this kind of stuff, the level of in-depth customization, the maybe like a branching story mission structure like they have in the old Wing Commander games. That would be great for something like this. Do something with the Tour of Duty mode. You could like blend a story campaign with cutscenes and NPC characters and stuff like that, and some genuine pathos with that kind of constantly branching and changing storyline based on your success or failure at the missions you're facing. That would be awesome. I mean, Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries had stuff like that. Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries, Mechwarrior 4 Vengeance had a bit of that too, where different missions would impact each other depending on the order and your success in certain things. There is a lot to be gained by looking back at the games of the past, seeing what they did well, seeing what they didn't do well but had a great idea, and seeing how to re-implement that with the modern day technology, graphics, and the way of doing things to try and bring back those ideas, not having to reinvent the wheel every single console or computer generation. And this is something that's very important because games like this aren't always going to be playable anymore. This one barely is after I don't know how much time and effort was spent pulling teeth to get this thing to work on modern systems. And that is worrying to a degree for, just games preservation in general. These are games that are important, if only just because of what they can teach us about what we can do with games today. And just for that, they deserve a second look. So, I have been Zero Sum. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a lovely holiday season. And I'll see you next time. I'm ejecting.
All primary objectives complete. Mission successful.